Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WrestleRant Radio for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. In addition to the usual wrestling talk, we have another exclusive interview on the show today, this time with MLW star, former Women's World Featherweight Champion Delmi Exo, talking all about Saturday's Azteca Lucha event coming up from MLW, winning the championship, beating Taya Valkyrie, her progression as a performer, and so much more. Going to be going up soon over an article form on dailyddt.com. The audio also available right now over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/WrestleRant. And then after that, we're going to have the usual conversation, as I mentioned, with Mr. Marceau, talking Backlash, King and Queen of the Ring, Mania in Vegas, and so much more. If you want new episodes of WrestleRant Radio, you can get them every single week on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, and all the usual podcast platforms. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show, and never miss a new episode every single week. Without further ado, enjoy my exclusive interview with Delmi Exo. Graham G. Matthews here with Fanside at dailyddt.com, ahead of MLW Azteca Lucha, Saturday, May 11th in Chicago. On the card, former MLW Women's World Featherweight Champion Delmi Exo teaming with Mayu Yamashita against Zeta and Janai Kai, loaded tag team match. We're talking to Delmi here today. Delmi, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming up on this matchup, in the last year, you've had quite the year in MLW, winning the Women's World Featherweight Championship. I messed that up a second ago, which I had to redo it, but the Featherweight Championship, losing it, obviously, you're on the path to getting the belt back. With this matchup, do you kind of see this as your next step to getting back in a championship contention and getting that rematch that you have yet to get in MLW?
Yeah, you know, it's really weird because I've more than done my fair share to earn a rematch LW for the Featherweight Championship, and they keep throwing me for a loop. This weekend coming up, we have a Fatal 4-Way matchup. I'm super excited. Mayu Yamashita is someone who I have been wanting to get back in the ring with since the first time we, locked claws. And Janai Kai, I have been training for those kicks, so I'm ready.
I mean, just talk about everyone in this matchup. Like you said, Yamashita is going to be in the matchup. Kai is the current featherweight champion, obviously. What do you learn from your past battles of being in the ring with these women that kind of helps you prepare for these upcoming matches like this 4-way matchup?
Honestly, you kind of learn their determination and what drives them and motivates them to get a win in a ring. All three of these people who I will be wrestling are some of the most hardest working women who I have had the opportunity to share a locker room with. I don't look down on any of them. I have to understand that I'm more hungry for this title than them. I'm someone who is, locked in with MLW. I feel like I'm someone who is more dedicated to the brand and more dedicated to the fans to bring them the best. And that's honestly what I'm going for. I want to represent the company.
I mean, you got the experience behind you as a former champion as well going into this matchup. In your time so far in the featherweight division and the women's division in MLW, how have you seen the division kind of evolve from what it was when you first came in and a lot of the faces that were there then to what it is now and kind of being towards the top of the pecking order, I guess, as a former champion and just having that experience behind you?
It's really great to see how far we've come with the women's division. Before we were getting, maybe a women's match on the card, and now we have 2 or 3 different moments where women are representing on the card. I don't want to give credit to Selena, but I will give credit to Selena De La Renta for helping really pick in and drive more focus towards the women's division. It's great to see the different faces that are coming up who are fresh blood in the business. We have Zeta Steele, who's coming into year 2 of her career, and she's already going to be, in with a Japanese promotion. Don't want to get too in detail there, but she has been able to start with MLW, and I would say that MLW has definitely helped with her growth in her career.
And with your own career too, I mean, coming in, obviously you've had a lot of experience over the course of your career, but you come into MLW and you, like I said, last year winning the championship. What do you attest your own progression and development to in the ring as a character as well as a constant in the MLW programming in the past year? It seems like you yourself have also grown tremendously in the ring as a character, like I said, to where we are now, to where you're kind of like one of the odds-on favorites, so to speak, going into this 4-way matchup at the event. What do you attest your own progress to as a performer in the time that you've been with the company?
I think I've definitely broken out of my shell more. MLW, before I might have been a little just happy to be there and kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, kind of just happy to get any opportunity that I was given. But now, with being the God Queen, there comes the burden of I have to be the best and wanting to prove that I'm the best every time I step in that ring. I was one of the first women to actually commit and sign with a contract with them. And so at the end of the day, I don't want to be outshone. And I've definitely elevated myself to prove that I can't be done easily.
I mean, you mentioned it right there as the first female to sign a contract with MLW. That's got to be an amazing endorsement, right? For you to know that they have enough faith in me to lock me down to a deal and that I'm kind of the future of this division going forward.
Yeah, for sure. As I have mentioned, I want to represent the brand, and knowing how motivated and driven I am, I feel like I'm the right person to do it. And I don't want to lose my position as being one of the top females in the company and on the roster.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, like I said, the progression that you've shown has been definitely evident to fans like me watching the show consistently. And you mentioned the turning point as well, kind of coming out of your shell. Did winning the championship kind of mark that turning point, or did it come prior to that point last year?
So funny enough, I don't think winning the championship is what did that. I think winning the championship definitely, elevated my desire to work harder. But losing the championship is what made me really have this chip on my shoulder of, oh, okay, people think my time is over. People think my rise to the top has been done and that story's finished, but there's so much more that I want to do. And becoming a champion again is just the start of that.
And not only did you become the champion, I mean, you beat Taya Valkyrie to become the champion, which is obviously a notable name in the wrestling world now with Ring of Honor and AEW, of course. What did it mean to not only win the championship when you did, but to beat her for it, and then to go on to beat her again to retain the championship? And again, an amazing endorsement of what you mean to MLW, but also just in the eyes of the fans, what it means for your stock kind of going forward. So just your thoughts on not only winning the championship, but the fact that you beat Taya Valkyrie to do it, someone that's accomplished pretty much all that there is to do in wrestling in the last number of years.
Yeah, Taya is someone who I watched when I was training. She was up on Lucha Underground when everyone was watching it. Everyone wanted to be in that position, and to be a part of MLW and have kind of that pass off of what that was and that legacy. It just feels it feels memorable. It feels like we are on to something that is going to be looked at from people who are, maybe starting their careers or maybe getting interested in getting into wrestling. And so for her to be able to pass that on to me, it felt like such a privilege and an honor. She's someone who I am incredibly grateful for having broken into wrestling and really representing and being super supportive of Mexican culture. And as a female Latina myself, having her do that pass off was just so overwhelmingly motivating to keep going, keep pursuing more and more.
I love that you mentioned Lucha Underground, too, because I feel like, obviously it's intentional, but you see, if you watch the product, like a lot of Lucha Underground influence, and a lot of the same characters, obviously, in MLW today, Dario Cueto obviously being one of them, but you mentioned being kind of almost inspired in a way from watching the original incarnation of Lucha Underground. How much of it do you see as a performer on the other end of it, of the Lucha Underground influence in MLW of what we see today?
Well, right now I would say if we're scaling it 50%, like Dario Cuero, we have Cesar Duran right now, who I'm actually partnered with and being managed under. We have Selena De La Renta, who passed through there. We have a show called the Azteca Battleground coming in. So I love that MLW isn't afraid to feature Lucha as a high-profile division, because a lot of times Lucha can get lost in the mix, lost in the shuffle. It can get put in as like a nice palate cleanser for the heavyweights, or like, as we've seen on other cards. But like at MLW, Lucha is so respected, and I love that.
Yeah, I think MLW does a great job of that just in general with all of their shows. But I mean, obviously this one in particular, like you said, this one's called the Azteca Lucha. This is the name of the event coming up in Chicago. So like this one in particular is going to have a lot of that. But do you think, kind of going off of what you just said, and you mentioned it right there, do you feel like that's one of the strong suits of MLW right now, featuring more of the Lucha stuff than more promotions do on a mainstream scale, but also in the women's division as well? I feel like there's a lot of different things MLW is doing right now that more people should be paying attention to, because it does stand out from a lot of what the other companies are doing currently.
Yeah, MLW, the way they feature Lucha and making it such a more of a priority on the show is definitely that. I feel like with the women, we are like encouraged to do more of like a high impact offense versus just going it down and things like that, without going into much detail. But we are encouraged to like bring it and like the most with our time that we have in front of the audience, and like it just does help, when you're creating these stories where you want to get people invested in your character.
No, it works out well, too. In addition to that, you guys also get like a decent amount of promo time and in front of the crowd and backstage segments, too. So it's like a nice mixture of kind of getting to know you guys from that standpoint as well, but also getting to see what you guys are capable of in the ring, which is like the perfect combination. But we're going to be seeing that on this show, Azteca Lucha, the four of you guys, yourself, Delmi, obviously, Mio Yamashita, Janai Kai, Zed, for the championship, right? The championship is going to be up for grabs here.
Yes, it will be, and I will be gunning for it.
And hopefully you come out on top, but I mean, it remains to be seen, like you said, in the time that you lost the championship. You've gotten other opportunities, but it has yet to be one-on-one. When are we getting that one-on-one match? And again, you may not need it if you win here, but hopefully at some point we still get to see you and Janai Kai go one-on-one again.
I am willing to wrestle Janai Kai as long as I am physically capable of it. Hopefully it's at MLW. If I do not, for some reason, someone tries to, underhand me, it is a fatal four-way. Anything can happen. I actually don't have to be pinned. Janai doesn't have to be pinned in order for this title to be changed. If any funnery happens, I demand a title opportunity, whether it be Janai holding it, or whether it be Miyu, or whether it be Zeta Steel. I would like a one-on-one matchup for the title. And if it's Janai, that's just a bonus. That's just a plus for the fan.
Yeah, as a former champion, I think you're owed that much, and hopefully we do get to see that at some point down the road. But before then, obviously, we got this show, Azteca Lucha from MLW, Saturday, May 11th in Chicago. I'm looking forward to it. Delmi, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. Congrats on the success. I know you took time out of your busy schedule today to chat, so thanks for that, and best of luck at your show tonight.
Thank you so much.
Big thanks to Delmi for the time. As I mentioned earlier, the audio of that interview also available right now over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/WrestleRant, and in article form soon over on dailyddt.com. Now we throw it to my conversation with Mr. Marceau, coming off a Backlash this past weekend. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing perfectly just fine coming off a Backlash, but I know you're still kind of recovering from Jey Uso coming up short of becoming the World Heavyweight Champion.
I'm still repairing my television. I ripped off the mold.
The best part is, wait, did you predict Jey Uso to win? I forget. Did you predict, or did you just really want him to win?
I did.
You did?
I said him too. Fuck Damian Priest. He sucks.
You know what? Let's not waste any time here. I was going to kick off with the Backlash review. Let's do that, but let's not even start with the first match. We'll get back, Tanga Loa, cool, like whatever. New tag team champions, who gives a shit? I'm just kidding. I do care about that, but we'll get to that momentarily. Let's start with the Jey Uso thing, because we've talked about this at length this past week over text and whatnot, and it's been the conversation on social media as well. The guy is super over. I didn't expect for a second. I mean, they did convince me on a few different points. I will say that. It wasn't extremely predictable that Jey Uso would lose. He did lose on Saturday at Backlash in Lyon, France, coming up short again of not only becoming the World Heavyweight Champion, a title that he's gone for twice now in 6 months, but he also fell short to Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. He fell short of becoming Intercontinental Champion against Gunther. He fell short against Austin Theory last summer of becoming United States Champion. He even lost the tag team titles with Cody Rhodes last fall. What is going on with Jey Uso, Mr. Marceau, and how do you fix it? That is my question to you.
I mean, I just feel, like you said, he's obviously always lost. All of it came from pretty much Jimmy. Obviously, this time was Judgment Day interference. But they keep, teasing it on commentary, oh, Jay's never won a singles title. So I feel like eventually it has to culminate with something. I mean, I don't think him and Priest are permanently done yet either. I mean, he's facing Ilya, I believe, next week in King of the Ring. So I'm trying to see maybe some Judgment Day interference there, help Ilya beat Jay, and then maybe get Jay and Damian again at King of the Ring. But, I mean, I think eventually it has to pay off with him winning something. I mean, it doesn't have to be the World Heavyweight Championship, but he has to win something. I mean, I said to you before via text, I just feel like this was 5-10 years ago. People would have turned on LA Knight and Jey Uso 6 months ago. They were super over, but they have nothing to show for it. I mean, maybe fans are just more forgiveful now, but I mean, 5-10 years ago, if you were someone that was high up and coming or someone that was getting a big push and you lost every title match that meant anything, you'd basically be like Braun Strowman 2.0 at this point. But people are still behind them. But I think they need to culminate with some kind of victory that means something.
Well, does the meaningful victory come in the form of the King of the Ring tournament? Like you said, he advanced on Monday, beating Finn Balor in the first round, replacing a injured Drew McIntyre. Now, I honestly expect from the beginning they knew McIntyre couldn't go, but Jey Uso had just lost the World Heavyweight Championship match to Damian Priest. So announcing him right then and there would have been odd. So having him replace McIntyre, I think makes sense. I think that was the plan all along, honestly. I could be wrong on that. But regardless, he did beat Balor again on Monday to advance. He's going to take on the debuting Ilya Dragunov, Raw's newest acquisition. He just beat Ricochet in a banger on Monday. We'll get to that later on. Does he beat Dragunov? Does Jey Uso get his first meaningful win as a single star? Not counting the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal bullshit. Does he win the King of the Ring, and is that what you're talking about? Does he win that at King and Queen of the Ring later this month?
I don't see it.
So he loses again.
I don't know if you see it. I don't think he'll win it. I don't know. The way the bracket's set up, I don't think he... Honestly, I don't even know if he should win it. I don't think he will win it either. So I think there's a better chance that Judgment Day comes out and helps, whatever, distracts him. He loses to Ilya. We get him and Damian again than him winning King of the Ring outright. Honestly, I think do that. Him and Damian at King of the Ring. The same kind of shit happens. Judgment Day comes out. Damian's seemingly going to win. That's where we get Jimmy comes back, helps Jay finally, because he fucked Jay all those other times. Helps Jay finally win. Jay wins the belt, and then you have him drop it to Drew at Clash of the Castle, because then Drew has a bitch that Jay they already have a feud there too, so Jay can hold the belt for a month or I don't even think it's not even a month. It'd be 3 or 4 weeks, and then he can drop the belt to Drew, and then Drew can hold the belt and then face Punk when Punk's ready.
Yeah, that's honestly not a bad idea, because my other question to you was, which we've talked about, I just do not personally see Jey Uso as not just a world champion, I'm talking long-term champion of 6 months. Now, I know he had Kofi Kingston as champion for 6 months, but it was wasn't that different of a time, I guess, but I don't know, I even thought Kofi was kind of more ready for that spot, and obviously Jey Uso's even more over than Kofi was back in 2019. But if you're saying just to put it on him for 3 weeks, because I said, even if he were to win it, I'm not going to text you and say, what the fuck is this bullshit? I just don't think him holding it for 6 months is all that viable. I just think he's better in the mode of challenging for it. But if he has to win something at some point, I agree with that. I think him winning the World Heavyweight Championship could be viable, because does any other opponent come to mind as far as who who Damian Priest defends against, the King and Queen of the Ring? Because no one on the Raw roster makes sense to me right now, and everyone else is kind of busy in the tournament anyway.
No, exactly. That's my thought. And like I said, and then you only hold the belt for like a little bit, and then like it's like a notch on the belt. Like, oh, he finally won the singles title. They can fucking throw it on all the graphics. He was a champion. Blah blah blah. And like I said, then he can lose it to Drew, because I think that's the direction. He loses to Drew because Drew's already mad at him before. It took a spot in King of the Ring. Mm-hmm. Drew comes back, gets the title match, beats him in Scotland, and then we get him and Punk seemingly, hopefully, for SummerSlam. But I don't know when Punk's going to be back. But, I mean, obviously, right now that's the money match on Raw, and they're both just not there. Mm-hmm. So that kind of connects the pieces to get there. Because, I mean, why would Priest face Drew? They're both heels.
Well, I mean, in Scotland, Drew would be the babyface. I mean, they're in his hometown. I think Drew would probably, I understand what you're saying, but I think in Scotland they wouldn't have to worry about that, because Drew would get cheered over Damian. Like, Drew would be in, I mean, I don't think Jey would get booed, but I think Drew would be the favorite, though, because he's in his home country. But, I'm fine with that. My idea was that Priest would hold it until Clash, and then he would... I mean, I think regardless, I think we can agree that Drew should probably walk out of Clash with that World Heavyweight Championship, because if he's not facing CM Punk on that show, which I would be okay with, because it's going to come to a certain point, and Punk popped up on Monday night, which was cool, unannounced appearance, enjoyed seeing him there, obviously. I didn't really say much of note. But they're going to get to a point where they're going to have to get physical or do something, because they're going to run out of material. I've been enjoying their exchanges and Punk's promos and McIntyre going off on him. I don't know if you can keep that hot for another 3 months until SummerSlam. I would do their first match on that show, but if Punk's not cleared until that show, they're going to have to figure something out. But having McIntyre be world champion in the meantime might not be a bad idea, and I think he would win it on that show. So I think we could both agree he definitely walks out of Clash as the World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But Jey, though, I feel like I don't see what you proposed actually happening. I'm just saying that's a good idea. Because honestly, I don't really know what else you do. Or actually, let me ask you this. So let's say he doesn't win the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't know if I would run back him and Jey, Damian and Jey, at the next pay-per-view if Jey's not going to win. I feel like one loss is fine. To have him lose again, not exactly ideal, especially if it's going to end the same way with interference from Judgment Day. Clearly, Judgment Day is on the rocks right now. They're headed for a split. Do you think inadvertent interference from them either costing Damian the championship or just flat out turning on him at Saudi Arabia, which might be too soon? I would probably hold off on that. Damian and Finn, to me, sounds like it might be a SummerSlam match. Do you think they could also factor in a Jey Uso potentially becoming champion? Not only Jimmy being there. Jimmy's kind of on the fence with me because I think he's hurt right now, legitimately. So he might not be ready.
Get him out there. Get him out there. Have Naomi drive out to the ring if he needs to get out there. I don't give a shit.
At the same...
I need the hoodie. Like the hoodie reveal in Saudi, I would fall off my couch.
I will say, though, he was out injured in those early Jey Uso World Championship matches 4 years ago. Remember when he faced Roman in 2020? Jimmy Uso factored into the finish both times. He was hurt both of those times. He didn't come back until like a good 6-7 months later. So, I mean, it is, I don't know how hurt he is unless he got his leg amputated or something. I think it's possible that he's out there.
Well,
so
all he needs to do is just pull Priest out of the ring. That's all he needs to do with the referee. Just pull the referee out of the ring, hoodie on, pulls the hoodie off, Damian shits himself, it's Jimmy, Jey wins. Amazing. Say, cinema.
I told you before Mania, I did not like the idea of the Usos reuniting imminently because I like the idea of Jey being his own single star, but where I think this is headed is Jey either losing to Damian again or whatever, and they're just going to head right back into the Usos reunion without Jey getting anything to show for a single success. That's where I think this is going. And then obviously they'll factor into the Bloodline stuff. They'll probably keep Jey and Jimmy separate on Raw for a little while, and then run back him and Solo and shit later on when Roman's ready to return, maybe do a trade, I don't know. But that's probably where I see this going, which would be a shame to not at least give him like the Intercontinental Championship, which again, I don't really see. Unless, which someone had tweeted me the other day, what if Gable is hopefully the next Intercontinental Champion, and instead of Sheamus, which I was thinking, maybe Jey Uso knocks off Gable to win that championship at some point. Do you see that as a possibility potentially?
It just really depends on what the story is. I feel like getting the end of the summer, early fall into winter, he's going to be with the whole Roman Reigns bloodline stuff. So it's like, where does that really fit into where he is, I guess. Like you said, I feel like if he loses to Priest again, I mean, what do you do with him then? That's my question. And like I said, if Jimmy's hurt and he just loses again, then what? Well, so like I said, I feel like at least if he had the belt for like a hot second, keep him going a little bit longer, and then you kind of lean into the whole bloodline stuff going into SummerSlam.
No, I agree with that. They have to kind of time it well, because
realistically, like I said, did Sammy really need to beat Gunther? Like, yeah, it's nice and all, but like, I guess you had the story of Chad too, but like, Jay could have been the one to beat him. Like, did Sammy need to do it again? Like,
I wouldn't have had Jay beat him.
Sammy. Hey, talk all about Sammy here. How many big wins does he need?
I don't know if Jay needed to beat him, but I still think it should have been Chad. But I think we both agree Sammy didn't really need it. But yeah,
Sammy didn't need it.
Sammy did not yeet it. They could have yeeted it to Jey Uso instead to rhyme unnecessarily. But last thing though with the Usos, if and when they do reunite, I mean, Jey looked like a fucking idiot at WrestleMania when Jimmy was like, "Oh, we're brothers. Like, I love you," and then he fell for it anyway. I mean, he still won, thankfully, but I mean, after everything Jimmy has done for this, or done to this guy, not for him, done to him in the past year, he still like forgave him immediately. So clearly, he's going to forgive him when the time comes. Post-Mania, when that reunion happens at some point in the next couple of months. My concern, though, is when they reunite the Usos for this Bloodline story, that the Usos will go right back to doing the New Day thing where they're strictly a tag team, and Jay's not really a singles player on Raw. You look at the Raw roster, honestly, they don't really even need Jay as a single star in that show. They have a lot of them as it is. They don't really need to focus on Jay at all. But I would like to see him. I mean, he's doing so well in this role, and it's something that we haven't seen before just last year. I think it would be a mistake to put them just in the tag team division. I mean, Jimmy, if he wants to do single stuff like he has been, who gives a shit? I mean, he's not. I mean, I don't think anyone will really care. But I think Jay, they can at least continue to focus and feature him as a single star. Like you said, you just said Jimmy should help Jay win the world title. I mean, at that point, technically, they would be a tag team or back together. But Jay, at least for 3 weeks anyway, would be a world heavyweight champion. I mean, that's kind of my main concern as far as making sure he stays in the single spotlight and not strictly back to tag team stuff,
No, I agree. I think he should still have some single. Like I said, I think he's just so over the singles guy that it would be a mistake just to put them back together again and not have any kind of singles momentum. But like I said, I feel like that would be the best way to kind of like connect them again. Like I said, I don't want like Jimmy just to come crawling back to me. He's like, okay, I'll take you back. Like I said, the whole WrestleMania thing was so dumb. But if you like actually help them for once, then maybe it would kind of make more sense that, okay, now he helped me, whatever, But yeah, just to put him back in a tag team would be kind of dumb.
No, I think that'd be stupid, especially if they were just to go back to the tag team stuff and beat fucking Awesome Truth or whatever for the World Tag Team titles. No thanks. Like, maybe down the road, not right now. Like, I still want Jay on his own. I say I don't really see him as a world champion long term, but I still want to see Jay doing his own thing. Because again, I mean, we've been to a bunch of shows, but I was at Raw on Monday, and the guy was one of the most over guys in the entire show. No surprise there, obviously. But they should take advantage of that instead of wasting it. And they would be hot as a tag team. Like, when the Usos turned babyface last year on Roman, there was a string of shows that summer before Jimmy turned heel, which was stupid. I mean, we were there for that. That went over like a fart in church. That was terrible. But prior to that point, the Usos were very over as a babyface tag team, and they didn't really tap into that at all because Jimmy immediately turned back on Jay and joined the Bloodline again. So they kind of have to rectify that and steer that fine line of not making them a full-fledged tag team while also kind of putting them back on the same side. Because Jimmy, without the Bloodline, is fucking doomed. He is doomed to flounder on his own unless he's back with Jay, at least on a friendly level, if not just teaming with him all the time. But we talk about the Bloodline. That was my other development, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, the other topic of note here. From Backlash, opening the show, the street fight, the impromptu street fight that Nick Aldis made official at the start of the show between Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. A really, really good match. An excellent match. The crowd ate it up. I thought they really just beat the shit out of each other. This felt more hardcore than your average WWE street fight. We get street fights all the time in WWE, in AEW, all these companies, but this one felt different, at least by WWE standards. Really good match. We all thought, we talked about it last week, Jacob Fatu probably debuting, helping Solo and Tama win, cementing the new Bloodline, but they threw us a curveball. They gave us a Tanga Loa debut, the former Camacho of 12 years ago. He was released almost exactly a decade ago, having his last televised WWE match 10 years ago this month against Adam Rose at a fucking NXT TakeOver. That is how long he's been gone from the company on TV, which is crazy. But he went obviously to New Japan, or actually he went to TNA for a little while in the Rising with LA Knight and Drew Gulak, we'll talk about him later, Drew Galloway and Drew McIntyre, obviously. He formed a faction with them, then went to New Japan, formed the Guerrillas of Destiny with his brother Tama Tonga, and they're a great tag team, or at least were. I don't know if they have been a tag team lately, but they're reunited now in WWE with the Bloodline. I thought this was great. I'm really digging the Bloodline stuff right now. Solo comes across really well. He's doing well in his role. He needed that development. Tama Tonga's played his role so far, and he's only been in the company for a month, but he's played his role well. Tanga Loa, this is the perfect position for him. He's kind of one of the heavy guys with Tama Tonga. And then you also have Jacob Fatu kind of hanging in the distance. You have Paul Heyman acting scared every time they're out there, kind of hesitantly putting up the one after they won their match on Saturday. So I thought this whole thing was great. So what was your reaction and thoughts to the debut of Tanga Loa at Backlash on Saturday?
So first, I thought, like you said, the match itself I thought was really good. I thought, like more or less, there's so many street fights and no disqualifications or whatever. I don't know. I just feel like maybe they just laid it in more. I don't know. It just felt more hardcore than most the street fights or no DQ matches feel. So I don't know if they're just like, let's just go out there and fucking wreck each other and be stiff. But I don't know. It came off really well, and I felt like they were laying everything in. Everything looked good. It looked like it hurt. It looked like the crowd was also just fucking eating it up like the Last Supper. But the debut, the best is like you can just know when it's coming because the way the refs position, like they just like they're right near the ropes. These like legs are already hanging out of the ring. I'm like, oh, someone's pulling him out of the ring. And then they said, and I was like, is that Camacho? And then they said his new name. Yeah. And then hit them both the steel steps 1, 2, 3. But I think it's another good addition. Like I said, I like the Bloodline stuff. Fucking Heyman is killing it. Him like the scared look and doesn't know what to do, and he's just kind of there, and like he doesn't like he's trying to stop them. Like after the match, he's like covering up Owens, like stop guys, like he's had enough. Like I don't know, it's like a new side of Heyman. So I think we're kind of slowly getting into like the babyface wise man. Obviously, when Roman gets back, I assume would align with Roman. It makes sense because I feel like he's kind of I don't know if he's showing a heart or he's kind of just I don't know. He's just kind of getting more of a babyface. So I think so far so good. Like I said with Solo and Tama Tonga's been good, and now we'll see what happens to Tanga Loa. But I thought it was a great way to start off the show, and it's not like Owens and Orton lose anything in defeat. They hit their moves. The crowd was eating that up too. So I thought it was a good start to the show, honestly.
And I think, the match itself was great. A great way to start the show. One of the better openers I've seen on a WWE pay-per-view in a while. And they've had some really good pay-per-views and some really good pay-per-view openers, but this one really kind of stands out to me. This should be on the list of best WWE matches of the year. I think when all is said and done, come the end of 2024, I'll probably put it in the voting at the end of the year, obviously, in the year-end awards. But no, the match was great. I think the debut of Tanga Loa really indefinitely expands this Bloodline thing. Now that you have the Guerrillas of Destiny in there, I feel like there's so much more they could do with this storyline before Roman even comes back. Like, it's leading to a civil war, and maybe even War Games probably at Survivor Series. I wouldn't be surprised about that. I don't think it has to happen at Survivor Series. I am still not sold on the fact that War Games has to happen on the same show every fucking year. I've said that before. It's like Anarchy in the Arena now with Double or Nothing. They're doing that at the same pay-per-view every year, which, not a big fan of that, I think. Especially in that case. I mean, that feels so fucking rushed. War Games, same thing. I mean, I don't think it needs to happen on that show every year, but by that point, maybe the feud's at a point where it makes sense to do a Roman-led Bloodline versus a Solo-led Bloodline. It's like NWO Black and White and NWO Wolfpack or whatever. They could totally do that. But I think this is cool. Where do you think Jacob Fatu falls on which side of the fence? Again, we all kind of expected him to debut on the show. He did not. They are clearly meticulously holding him out for a bigger moment. Not even a bigger moment, but like they want to keep people guessing for where they're going with this. And I honestly don't know. We know the end game is probably a Roman bloodline versus a Rock bloodline. But in the meantime, where does Jacob Fatu go? Does he end up with Solo as we thought? Or does he end up reuniting with the Usos in the meantime?
I think it's tough. I feel like I obviously haven't seen a ton of him. I feel like he's he just looks more like a heel. But then, like, you already have 3 on their side. And if you added Roman to the Usos, you'd still need another one. And I feel like he could probably add a little bit more star power to the solo side. So I think eventually, I think I'd put him on the solo side. Like I said, I just feel like the solo side needs a little bit more, like, kind of oomph. And then you'd have Roman, the Usos. You get someone else with them, and they don't even have to be like the big part because you already have Roman and Jey, and then Jimmy's just there as well. But I think I'll put him with Solo for now. I think it just makes the most sense. Maybe he starts off with Roman and turns, or as a good guy or anti-Solo, but then he goes to Solo side, and then they just grab another member to put on Roman's team. But I'll say he'll be with Solo.
The funniest thing is that they may not be done. They might be still recruiting new members to this group, including Jacob Fatu. I mean, I'm talking like Hikuleo, who was on AEW a couple times. He's the brother of Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa. He's this, taller guy. You've definitely seen him before on Dynamite a few years ago. I think his contract might be up in New Japan come the summer, so they might be recruiting him too. I know they wanted him at one point about a year and a half ago, and it didn't really work out, but maybe he comes in later on this year. There's him, and there was another individual I was thinking of. I can't remember who I was thinking of, but Hikuleo, Jacob Fatu is another one. They can even add more members if they wanted to. I guess we'll see in due time. But I think Jacob Fatu, though, to kind of go along with the report, and we talked about this before we hit record here, but that report from WrestleVotes is so fucking accurate from the other day, where they said that there was a hesitation in WWE to include Fatu. I mean, obviously he's going to factor into the storyline, no shit. But there's some trepidation, I guess is the right word to use, over Jacob Fatu's role in this whole thing, because they fear he might outshine Solo Sikoa. And if you know anything about Jacob Fatu, have seen a single match of his, a single promo of his, a fucking 10-second clip of a 10-second clip of Jacob Fatu, then you would know that the sky is blue, because that is 100,000% accurate. I mean, this guy is literally what I told you before I hit record, like I said. This guy, Jacob Fatu, is literally what they have wanted Solo Sikoa to be. Not to say Solo Sikoa is bad, he's not. He is improved. I've always liked Solo, dating back to NXT. But Jacob Fatu is much farther along in the process in every single aspect, and would be a lot better in the leader role than Solo. I don't know if I can buy Jacob Fatu following around Solo when they're both like similar size, and Jacob Fatu is much farther along than he is. Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa are one thing. They're very good. They're obviously better than Solo, but they're not leaders. Jacob Fatu is a fucking leader. So that's why I feel like it might make more sense for him to lead the Usos until Roman Reigns comes back, and then we get Jacob Fatu and the Usos versus Solo, Tama Tonga, and Tanga Loa. I feel like that would just make the most sense. But we'll find out in due time. They're doing a really good job of keeping people guessing, spreading out the storyline, not rushing it. So I'm liking that a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do on SmackDown. Tanga Loa, or rather not Tanga Loa, Tama Tonga is actually in the King of the Ring tournament against Bobby Lashley in a first-round match, so that might factor into something. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Also from Backlash, though, Bayley beating Naomi and Tiffany Stratton in a triple threat to retain the WWE Women's Championship. I thought this was a great match. Bayley winning. I mean, none of these matches to me were really in doubt, but I thought they had a really, really good match. Tiffany looking great in defeat again. I would say she got over, but I mean, 1, she was already over, and 2, everyone was over on this show, so that's not really saying much, I guess. But she got a great reaction. She had a great showing. She was not pinned, so she does have a reason to go back for the championship at some point. She's in Queen of the Ring, so probably not at the Queen of the Ring pay-per-view, but she can always go back for the belt at some point down the road. So your thoughts, Mr. Marceau, on the triple threat for the WWE Women's Championship?
That was a good match, like you said. I mean, Stratton just never fails to disappoint. I mean, she's so good. I thought Naomi and Bayley were good as well. I'm not loving Bayley as a babyface right now. I don't know if it was just because she had to turn babyface and then because of the whole damage control. I don't know. She just doesn't. Maybe it's because I haven't really seen her in like this iteration as a babyface, but I don't know. It just doesn't vibe well with me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just feel like she was better as a heel. So and like now, like the whole babyface, I remember her as like the hugger thing. I don't know. I think it was a good match. But I don't know, the whole maybe it's just her as champion. She's just like you said, maybe she's just a better chaser than champion. But I don't know, I kind of felt flat on that aspect. But Naomi, they were fucking eating up Naomi like she was fucking I don't even know. But it was a good match. Like I said, everyone was over, so you could have put fucking a broomstick and they would have cheered. So I thought it was a good match, and I honestly, like I said, just take out how good Stratton is.
Yeah, I think she will be champion in due time. I don't really think they needed to put the championship on her here. We'll get to the Queen of the Ring stuff soon, but I don't think she needed the win here. I think she can win it a little bit later on. Bayley holding it. I mean, she just won the championship, so I'm totally fine with her retaining it. Speaking of women's titles, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, knocking out the Kabuki Warriors. A largely good match, some rough moments, especially down the stretch. Jade had her moments of inexperience there. It was definitely on full display. That is why she is not she is the total package, but in terms of not being exactly great in the ring yet, that comes with the experience, and at least in the WWE world. I know she was wrestling for a long time in AEW, but for the most part, she wrestled a lot of the same match for 3 fucking years, so doing something different. I mean, this has gotta be. I don't know this for a fact. This was like a 17-minute long match, dude. This has gotta be the longest match she's ever had in her entire career. I mean, these are the type of matches that we need to see out of her so we can know what she's capable of. And she wasn't exactly great at the entire match, but, that she needs to be working these sorts of matches to get those reps in. But I thought this was good, though. The title change was the right call. And now we got Bianca and Jade as the new Women's Tag Team Champions. So your thoughts not only on the match, but what this means for the future feud, inevitably, between Bianca and Jade Cargill on SmackDown.
Yeah, eventually this is where it's leading with them holding the belts, and then obviously they'll lose them, and then we'll probably get some kind of split here. But the match itself was fine. I mean, I thought the outcome was probably the most predictable. I mean, I didn't think there was any chance Jade and Bianca would lose, and they didn't. Like I said, that sequence of Jade, it was rough to watch. Like I said, just inexperience. Just, I don't know. Like I said, it probably was the longest match she's ever been in. It just, I don't know. It just felt like she was really lost. And then I just felt bad for Asuka and Kyrie, because I feel like they were ready for the spots, and she just had fucking no idea what was going on. And then like the referee was like, "Oh, you're illegal, you're not," and then Kyrie got out, but then she tagged back, or she just came back, tagged back in. I don't know. It was kind of like a little, like, I don't know if the referee got confused too, because like Kyrie was legal the whole time. Then he was like, "You're not legal," and Asuka, and then like maybe they just did that to kind of like get Jade back on track, but honestly, it confused the fuck out of me even more. So it was a good match till that kind of happened, and then it kind of went downhill from there. That, like I said, outcome never was in doubt, and this will lead to eventual Bianca-Jade feud.
I think it's smart. I think they're taking the long-term storytelling route here with Bianca and Jade, obviously headed for a one-on-one match, but not right away. I mean, it would have been very easy for them to just go right into the match as soon as Jade debuted, but that would have been a mistake. I don't think Jade's ready for that yet, so building her up first and establishing her with the audience and ensuring she gets better before that match happens will hopefully mean that it will not be a disappointment. So I think this is smart. The tag titles themselves are completely pointless, but I think they're just props in a vehicle to kind of further the storyline, progress the storyline, get them to where they need to go, and they could drop them in another couple months and start their feud from there. Maybe in time for SummerSlam, maybe they hold out even longer. But I think SmackDown has such a stacked women's division between Bianca, Jade, Tiffany, Bayley, Naomi. And you also have Charlotte on the back burner as well, out injured right now. They have Nia, who's, improved, and I haven't really minded her run so far in the company. Blair Davenport's now on SmackDown, among other women. They have the way, Indy, Candice, but they're not exactly higher up on the totem pole there. But they have such a stacked women's division to where I think they really could have a lot of different feuds on the show that are not involving the top championship, which is nice to say. They could have at least 2 or 3 different stories at one time on this show that are not revolving around the top title, which is nice. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of shakes out in the months ahead. We get to the main event, Cody Rhodes beating AJ Styles to retain the Undisputed WWE Championship. What I thought was an excellent match, made even better by the crowd. Again, they were hot for everything on the show. Singing the song, which they did definitely a little too much. But I enjoyed the crowd for what it was, or I enjoyed the atmosphere for what it was, and I thought it added to the match. They had an excellent match. Cody proving he can go in there and have a storytelling masterpiece with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but also go in there and have a great wrestling match as well. And it was great to see AJ in the same spot that he's been in the past, to where he can go out there and prove what he's capable of too. So, again, your thoughts on the match, some of the crowd songs and chants and whatnot. I know you had your own opinion on that as far as your view on the crowd and how it affected your viewing of the show, and just your thoughts on the outcome as well. Cody Rhodes retaining the championship and how it affected the match as well.
Yeah, I thought the match itself, like I said, I think it was kind of like the more in-ring working match instead of the story match, and I thought kind of got people to see what AJ's still capable of. Obviously, we haven't really seen him spotlight that lately, so that was good. I mean, this match at LA Night was good, but I thought this was a little bit better. Cody looked good. AJ looked good. The crowd, like I said, was eating this up again. Like I said, I think it was more just like just the chanting just wouldn't stop. I think that was maybe my one biggest takeaway. Like, I know, like, especially with soccer, like European soccer specifically, like, they're very into, like, the chanting, but, like, when you can't even, like, it just kept going. I think that was the one thing that, like, bothered me. I'm like, okay, like, every time they'd have a pinfall, they'd just go right back into singing again. It's like, okay, like, it felt very, like, night after WrestleMania, like, look at us, we can sing and chant, so.
Yeah,
at first it was like, okay, by the end of the show, I'm like, okay, we get it, like.
Yeah. When it gets
they sang the AJ song like 20 times in the song like, during the match. Like, okay, like this isn't a musical. It's like, I don't know. I felt like by the end of the show, I was very irritated with it.
When it gets to a point when it's not about the match itself, at least in my opinion, that's when it becomes a problem. It was getting to that point towards the end. I love the atmosphere overall, but yeah, no, I could totally see where you're coming from with that. I mean, it was at a point like, I don't know. It's funny because I don't want to complain about a hot crowd, but if we're nitpicking here, that would be my one criticism. I would agree because they were singing for. I mean, there was like a 1 or 2 count or something like that, a near 3 count, and they weren't even chanting along because they were too busy singing about something from like 2 minutes earlier. So you got to be careful with that sort of stuff. But it was funny that. I mean, the match was great. Cody winning was the right call. But let me ask you this though. They had this show on Saturday. Probably, would you say from all the shows that you've watched, probably the hottest crowd that WWE's ever had for any show they've ever done?
Yes.
So, I would agree. I think it's the hottest crowd they've ever had. Then you get to Raw on Monday, and I knew going into it people are going to shit on the show. And it ended up being a pretty good Raw. But I knew people were going to shit on it because we, Hartford, are not Lyon friends. No crowd is Lyon friends. But I knew for a fact Hartford in particular would be a disappointment because it's fucking Connecticut. There is no hot crowds in Connecticut. We have our decently live crowds sometimes, some lively-ish crowds a little bit. We are not Lyon friends. We're not even close. We're not even Chicago. New York's a little bit, it's a 20-minute train ride away. They're a lot hotter than we are. We are Hartford, Connecticut. But I had a couple people ask me, and I saw people online, do you think the Backlash crowd will inspire any motivation, enthusiasm, energy into getting U.S. crowds to care more and to react louder? My answer was no, and I'm even more emphatic with my answer coming out of Raw. Having been there, and I can fucking tell you, this crowd, I mean, yeah, they were hot for Sheamus and Gunther and Ilya and Ricochet, 2 tremendous matches. But, for example, Ivy Nile and Zoe Stark was not going to be really, no crowd was really going to care about that. No one really gave a shit about that match. But if you do that match in France, for example, New Catch Republic and Final Testament on SmackDown last week, also in the same arena in France, the crowd ate it up. They were behind, I mean, maybe not AOP exactly, but they were hot for the match, and it felt like a fucking WrestleMania match because of the crowd. So, Hartford did not follow suit. They did not give a shit. And I feel like every other crowd will not care either. So do you think that the Lyon crowd will have any effect on U.S. crowds in making us more eccentric and excited, or do you think it's really just going to be a one-and-done thing and that's it?
It's not going to be like that, no. I mean, like I said, I think the difference is, like I said, it's more of like a cultural sporting event thing. Like, they go to like a soccer game, which is obviously the biggest sport there, and they sing and chant the entire time. Like, they're very passionate in that. Like, when you go to a football game, you're more of like, kind of going to wrestling, like, you're like, ooh, like, it's kind of more of that reaction of like, something happens big and then you react to it. Like, that's kind of like what it's like in wrestling too. It's like, you react to the bigger parts. It's kind of like our culture is like, you react to like, our sports, you react to like the NBA dunk, or you react to the home run, or you react to the goal in hockey, or the touchdown and stuff like that, or the big hit in football. Like, it's more of a reaction crowd, and that's kind of like how the United States crowds are. With soccer, like, there isn't a ton always going on, so they do the singing and chanting and dancing and yelling and all that stuff, like, throughout the game. So, like, I feel like that's, like, it's a cultural difference. I mean, I also just feel like the people there were, like, the 6,000 or 11,000 avid WWE fans that are in France. Like, not everyone going to a show in the United States is like a fucking diehard WWE fan. So I also just think the cultural difference, you'll never get that out of a United States crowd.
I don't think so. I mean, it would be nice to think that maybe the U.S. crowds could follow suit and maybe like, oh yeah, well, you know what, we really could be more energetic. But then I go to Raw, and then I hear in the first couple minutes of Gunther and Sheamus, which the crowd did eventually get into, I hear a chant for Tiffy time for a good minute, which I know Ludwig Kaiser and other dating, like, I get the connection there, but it's like, still, like, fucking folk, like, pay attention. Like, this isn't some terrible match, and I just feel like that's why I get bothered. And some people don't get it, but when you go to Mania and there's like a bad match and people are doing the wave and shit, if the match is really terrible, then I guess by all means go ahead. But I get bothered with that stuff because the people who don't really get it will then start doing that shit for every single match. And not only the shit that maybe necessarily deserves it or it's more tolerable, like for every match they're going to start doing the wave or the dumb chanting. I mean, I knew the crowd in Hartford was doomed when during the Dakota promo, which wasn't like a home run by any means, but we started doing, I didn't contribute to this shit, the dumbass what chant. I'm like, all right, you know what, this shit's never going to change. It's back to the same old. It's been literally 2 days and nothing is going to change. I am not shocked at all, but I just wanted to get that out there because I saw some people saying, oh, maybe us U.S. crowds will get louder. No, we won't. Maybe for like the louder markets, but the regular markets like Worcester, Mass, and fucking Poughkeepsie, New York, or some shit, they're not going to give a fuck. They're going to be the exact same level of energy they have always been. The product being better helps. I agree with, I understand that, but they just will not give a shit. I promise you. So after Backlash was over, they announced WrestleMania for Las Vegas, actually, which we kind of had an idea about. That's been the word for a little while now. I know they were kind of leaning towards Minnesota. But I think between the cold weather in April and just a lot of different factors, they opted against it. And I think they can go there for Mania 42. But for 41, they're going to Vegas, baby. They're taking the Double or Nothing route, which is where Double or Nothing will be a month later, actually, because they're holding Mania on Easter weekend, which is a first. They want to avoid you would know better than I would, the NBA Finals. Is that what it is? The Final Four, okay.
It's the NCAA Final Four, like March Madness.
Okay, and then that's fallen on Mania weekend the past few years, so they want to avoid that. I don't really think, again, you're more of a sports guy than I am. Do you think there's much of an overlap there to where that's a problem? Because Nick Khan was like, oh, we want to avoid that. I'm thinking, does that really matter, though? Like, people aren't going to go to Mania because of that.
No, I wouldn't say so. It's not the Super Bowl.
No, exactly. If it was the Super Bowl, then sure, but it's not. So I just think doing it later April, I'm not exactly high on. But that's what they're doing. And, your thoughts on Mania in Vegas. Returning to Vegas for the first time in 30-plus years.
I mean, I like it, but I also feel like Minnesota got gypped again. And, the whole weather thing, the stadium's in a fucking dome, and the weather doesn't matter. It could be snowing a foot of snow outside. It's in a dome, so I don't love how Minnesota got stiffed again. And, they were just in, that part of the, LA is fucking a 2-hour fucking flight from, not even. Mm-hmm. It's probably an hour flight from Vegas. You're just there. So, I don't know. I understand they just went to Philly. I mean, it's not really near Minnesota. I guess you could kind of say it's the same thing, but I don't know. I think Minnesota got screwed a little bit. And also, they were just in Texas, so, that's close on the West Coast. So, I don't know. I think Minnesota kind of got gypped. Maybe they're trying to stick away from Minnesota right now because of the whole, Vince Brock stuff. Maybe they're like, oh, we'll give it another year to simmer out, and then we'll go to Minnesota. But, I mean, I'm fine with going to Vegas. Like I said, I just kind of feel bad for the Minnesota people because I feel like, not that they deserved it, but they kind of deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the talk now for, 5, 7, 10 years they were going to Minnesota, and they have yet to do it. I remember there being talks of them being in Minnesota for a Brock retirement match in, fucking 2018, probably before that. And they had just yet to do it. And, I mean, I don't really care personally, but for them, it does kind of suck. As long as they go there eventually, I think it's fine for WrestleMania. But did you see the report or the rumor from, I think Mike Coppinger, actually, our buddy from ESPN that we met in Nashville a few years ago? Because I saw the rumor, and I'm like, this can't be true. And I saw it was from him. I'm like, oh, that's, not exactly an unreliable source, so there might be something to this. saying that the Saudi government might want WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble. Dude, absolutely no fucking thanks. I mean, if you want to take...
Give them the Rumble.
Oh, my God. If you want to take Backlash or some shit, sure, go ahead. But taking, like, any of the big four, maybe Survivor Series, but, like, SummerSlam, Rumble, or Mania... No thanks. No thanks.
I'll give him the Rumble. No shot, the Mania.
I don't even want the Rumble there. I really don't.
Like, they already had the Royal Rumble.
Exactly. Well, I honestly forgot about it. I was doing a really good job of forgetting about that, and then you just reminded me, so thanks a lot for that.
It was bigger than the Royal Rumble is anyways. Why would they even want it? They already had a bigger one.
They already had Yokozuna's knockoff in the match, and Hornswoggle, and fucking Babatunde, and everyone else. I gotta go back and watch that.
The problem is, like I said, I feel like there's a good chance they would get the Royal Rumble. I don't think they get Mania. That seems a little far-fetched. But I feel like the problem is they're paying so much money, it'd be hard for them to say no.
I know, but why?
I don't know, like, because it seems like now, like, the cities are bidding to, like, host.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it sounds like, at least. Like the cities are, like, bidding to have these events. Like, they're paying to host the event. But, like, the Saudi shows, they're getting $50 million a show. So it's like, I doubt the United States cities are giving them that much. It might be a couple million, but not that much. So I hope it's not true. Like I said, they already got the Royal Rumble. They don't need another one. Maybe they can have the greatest WrestleMania. I don't fucking know. Maybe just do that, or greatest Backlash ever. I don't know. Greatest Elimination Chamber. Just throw greatest in front of it, slap the name on it, and then we'll move on. But, I mean, I think it would be a disservice to, like I said, even Survivor Series. Fuck, give them the Survivor Series. I don't even care at this point.
Yeah.
Also, circling back on what you said before, the War Games should not be Survivor Series every year. It's starting to get tired already.
No, I agree, yeah. I agree. Now, give them Survivor Series.
Hey, don't stop the kids. It's November. Like, stop.
It's the Hell in the Cell issue all over again. No, I agree. Give them even Money in the Bank, for God's sakes. I don't know. They've already had Elimination Chamber. They're getting King of the Ring. What more do they want? Do you think they see these other crowds in other countries getting these shows? And I mean, the thing is, these other countries are getting these shows, but they're not getting the Big Four. I mean, the Big Four have remained in the United States this entire time, dude. And Nick Khan even said that might change, because I know Triple H was like, I got to talk to the London mayor. I mean, okay, maybe, but... I think the London has...
I mean, depending on where it is, like Toronto, like... Oh, it is Canada, clearly,
yeah.
But I mean, it's pretty close to the United States, so it's like...
Yeah.
You're like a hop, skip, and a jump from Detroit to get there. So, like, even that's like with Minnesota, it's like, okay, it's in the United States, but, like, it's still right on the Canadian border. So, like, you'd still get people from Canada, too, to go. But, yeah, I would keep the Big Four. Like I said, maybe Survivor Series I'd peter out just because, like I said, especially if they're going to slap the cage in it every year. You can bring that to Saudi Arabia. I don't really give a shit. But I think SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and WrestleMania should stay U.S., Canada, specifically.
Yeah, no thanks. I mean, listen, Saudi's gotten their fair share of shows. We get our shows. I know I sound spoiled, but, like, you know, we need our shows. We need those shows, I think, just in the States. Not just, I'm not saying, like, because I want to go. I'm just saying that from the standpoint of, like, we got the greatest Royal Rumble, and it was fucking terrible, so.
When was the last pay-per-view we had that was, like, in New England?
Pay-per-view or just Big Four or whatever?
Pay-per-view. I'm trying to even think. Was Backlash in Providence the last one?
No, I think
Survivor
it was...
Series.
Survivor Series. Survivor Series.
What was that, 2022?
Yeah, but now that they've gotten so big with these international shows, the thing is that we would probably... I mean, that was a Big Four. But we've gotten to a point where all the B pay-per-views aren't even in the country. So when they do come to the country, they're going to go to, like, the Brooklyns, the Texases, that stuff, fucking Dallas, or LA, or Vegas, to where I don't think we're probably going to get another pay-per-view period for a long time, in my opinion, anyway.
I'm malnourished. Give me one.
Like, I'm not complaining, but, like, I think Boston would make sense. I think the days of them going to Providence to go into the fucking Dunkin' or whatever the hell it is now, the Amica Center, Amica Pavilion, whatever the hell it is. I think the days of that happening for, like, they went there for Backlash 2 years ago. They were there for Backlash 15 years ago. They were also there for, you went to all the shows, Hell in the Cell, and all this other sort of shit over the years, Armageddon. I think those days are done. Like, I don't see them coming back to Hartford for another pay-per-view, which is probably a blessing, because we're not a great crowd. I don't think that's going to happen. They might go back to Boston. They probably will at some point. I think there's a likelier chance that AEW runs the TD Garden for a pay-per-view than WWE does in the foreseeable future. I feel like that's a safe bet.
I just feel like they're just gonna, like, eventually going to run out of foreign markets to run, though. That's a thing.
Unless they go back. I don't know.
Like, I get the model, but I also feel like they kind of like you're gonna have all these smaller shows. It's not like the show in Berlin, like that's a smaller venue. Same with Backlash, and what else they do? I don't know. They're doing something else there too. I can't think of it on the top of my head. But like, you're then taking all those people. Like, I don't know. Theoretically, you're taking all those people that could be going to Clash, like,
Yeah.
because you're pulling from the same kind of group of. You're like, if you only had one show in Europe, then more people would likely go to it because it's the only show you're getting. You have 4 or 5 shows, and it's like, oh, we don't have to go to that one because we can go to this one. So, I mean, I guess you could say the same thing in the United States, but I just also think it's just a bigger region.
Well, I also think it's going to come crashing down at some point. I'm not saying like to be pessimistic, but like I see all these ticket prices that they're selling for these shows, the international shows, and they're fucking ridiculous. Like they even said Backlash, oh, the highest grossing arena event in WWE history. How? There was 11,000 people. It's because they fucking gouged those tickets to no end. And they're probably, I think they're doing the same thing with Clash. So at a certain point, you're right. They keep running Europe. A lot of the same people are going to be going to these shows. They're not going to be going to more than one show if these tickets are so expensive. So, let alone one, if not more than that. So, I think there's going to come a time where that happens. But here's a fun fact for you, or a fun question, I guess. What was the last, what pay-per-view on the WWE calendar has Boston not gotten, or have you not gone to, where it would be nice if they had at the TD Garden? Like that we've had in Boston, like they've done Mania, Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, even Money in the Bank. What match or what show on the pay-per-view calendar have they not done in Boston that would be nice to get?
I mean, Elimination Chamber is the only one I can think of. But we went to the one in Montreal, so I don't even really care to go see it again.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else.
Obviously, King of the Ring.
King of the Ring, technically, if you're going to count that as a pay-per-view. I mean, they've had Backlash.
Money in the Bank.
Backlash was in Providence, but...
Yeah.
Oh, I actually went to Backlash twice in Providence.
You did, yeah.
The one with John Cena and Edge.
Yeah.
SummerSlam, Royal Rumble.
What do they have at the end of the year?
What else?
Survivor Series.
TLC. Remember we went to TLC?
They did have that. We went to pay-per-views that aren't even a thing anymore.
We went to Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. They used to have they had Clash of Champions there one time, a long time ago.
What else is there? What else is there? I'm trying to think. It's like October. That's another Saudi show now, right?
Yeah, I think it's another Saudi show. I'm trying to think. Oh, no, they have Fastlane and Payback. They haven't done those shows in the Northeast.
Okay, they haven't had Fastlane or Payback, so bring it to Boston.
Actually, you know what? It wasn't in Boston, but we did go to Payback, too. Oh, no, did we go? No, I'm sorry. We went to Extreme Rules. They all blend together. We went to Extreme Rules in New Jersey, but that wasn't Boston, though.
New Jersey.
Yeah. Should we start a petition to get Fastlane in Boston?
I already have the petition. I already have it on Twitter.
I could see it,
Petition bring Payback and Fastlane to Boston.
They did not do Fastlane in an international market last year. It was in Indianapolis or something like that. Yeah, so it's totally possible. As I wind down here with you, Mr. Marceau, quick thoughts on the releases of the top star Drew Gulak, like anyone gives a shit, but I want to get your thoughts on that. And Gable Steveson, probably one of the biggest disappointments in WWE history as far as signings go.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna, Gulak, whatever. He's kind of basically a glorified job guy, so I'm not even gonna mention him. But with Steveson, I think I'm pretty sure they signed like the Calendar twins too, from the two twins from basketball.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure they're back in school playing basketball again. I think the problem with them specifically was like they're big enough that they could still I'm pretty sure he was like, I retired from collegiate wrestling, but he's like, oh, I'm gonna go back, and then I think he went back. I don't even know what the fuck's going on with him, but I know with the Cavanagh twins, I know they're both playing basketball again, so that clearly isn't happening. I don't know, just the whole COVID collegiate sport thing's kind of weird at this. It should start to be petering out now, just because it's been 4 years since COVID, but with COVID and you could get extra years to play, and a lot of these kids were like, oh, I can make more money with NIL or just kind of doing that than I would be going professional or doing something else. So I think that's kind of the problem, especially with him. He wrestled 1 or 2 matches. I feel like he was never I don't even know if he really trained. I don't even know. I feel like his whole signing was kind of we signed him, and then it was just you never really heard much else of it. Then he had that match with Corbin, was whatever, and then you never really heard much after that. I know his brother's there, Damon Kemp, but him himself, maybe he's back wrestling. I really don't know what he's doing. So very surprising. I think they thought he was just going to go, but Didn't work out, it sounds like. So, very interesting, though.
From what I can gather, though, I just don't think he was really cut out for pro wrestling. And I know I had seen that in the last day or two, his agent had said that NFL teams had reached out wanting him. I mean, I guess he's going the Brock route now. For Brock, wrestling didn't work out. It's just that not that it didn't work out, he just left because he wanted to. But then he did the NFL thing, and then he went to UFC. Maybe we see Gable Steveson do something similar. I don't know. But the difference between Brock and Gable Steveson is that Brock had that it aura about him. Gable Steveson does not. I don't know how he is as an athlete. Obviously, he's good enough to win a gold medal in the Olympics. I don't think it was really the athleticism was the issue. It was more so the charisma and the talking, which is a big part of the package. I don't really know if they knew what they were signing up for when they signed him a few years ago. And that's not even including all the allegation stuff. I'm just putting that aside. I'm just talking about from a pure presentation standpoint. He just is not a WWE superstar, and clearly it didn't really work out. So letting him go only made sense because he's been there now for almost 3 years. Has had all of one televised match, and it was a bust. So I think it just made more sense to cut their losses as opposed to keeping him under contract when they've given more talented people far less chances. And I just don't think it was a good look to keep him under contract if he had no plans for him. So to me, it only made sense. Last question for you, Mr. Marceau. We don't have to go through the entire bracket here, but King and Queen of the Ring happening right now. It kicked off on Monday with Dragunov, Jey Uso, and Gunther all advancing. We got SmackDown's tournament kicking off on Friday on SmackDown, both men and women. We're going to be having AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, Corbin and Hayes, Knight and Escobar, and Lashley and Tama Tonga. And I'll talk about the Queen of the Ring in a second. But of the names that I just mentioned, who do you see going all the way and winning the King of the Ring tournament this year?
Of course, you always ask me the hard ones first.
Got to put you on the spot.
For the men, I don't know. Gunther just seems so chalk that I don't want to say him, but it just seems like the right person. I'll say him or Ilya. I don't know. For some reason, that makes sense to me. So I'm going to go with him for the guys. And then for the women,
Tiffany's
I don't even know who's in for SmackDown. Give me some names.
So they haven't announced the matches yet, but I know, the bracket they haven't announced. But I'm pretty sure the people in it are Tiffany and Blair Davenport. I think that's a match on Friday. Indy and Candice are having matches with Naomi, Nia Jax, and another female on the SmackDown side. I don't remember who it is.
Who's on the top of the Raw bracket?
For the women?
Yeah.
Io Sky advanced. Shayna and Zelina are having a match. Lyra Valkyrie advanced, and Zoe Stark.
And Lyra's on the bottom, right?
Yeah, she's facing in the next round.
So it's gonna be Lyra versus Tiffany in the finals.
Oh wow,
Tiffany
okay.
will win. Tiffany will win because Lyra would have to beat Io, and Damage Control will fuck her over, and then we'll get her and Becky versus Damage Control. There you go. Tiffany wins.
Wow, kids booking it. Wow, okay, not bad. I think Tiffany should win. I think that would set her up perfectly, honestly, for a Charlotte Flair feud down the road. Queen of the Ring, the Queen. I mean, it just makes sense.
I was saying, is there any stakes to this, or you just usually sometimes you get a title shot? Is this just strictly you just win the King of the Ring?
So no, there's no stakes. They haven't done a title shot in about 20 years since Brock won it. But that being said, since Brock, I can't mention his name. He's persona non grata right now.
Hey, watch your lip.
He's persona non grata right now. But that being said, I do have faith that whoever wins, they'll actually do something with them as opposed to past winners. Even Zelina Vega, I mean, she actually won the tag titles. But when Woods won, he got hurt, and then he came back, and then the King stuff was gone. They did jack shit with him. It was cool that he won, but they didn't do anything with him. I do have some faith that if Gunther and Tiffany win, then they will amount to championship gold by the end of the summer. That's just my opinion. I feel like you would probably agree with that or not.
So you think Gunther's going to win for the guys? You kind of slipped that out there.
No, I agree with your predictions. I think Gunther's going to win, and I think he'll probably not go on to win the world championship immediately, but he'll hold on to that crown or whatever. Hopefully not walk around with a dumbass scepter and the plunger or whatever Wade Barrett had with R-Truth a number of years ago. Remember that bullshit? I think they'll do that, or not do that, I'm sorry, and then have him face whoever the world champion is in Bash in Berlin and win the championship there. That's my prediction.
Sounds good.
All right, so we'll see if that comes true. Watch next week when they have their matches on Raw. Jey Uso beats Dragunov, and then Gunther loses to fucking Kofi Kingston or Rey Mysterio, whoever advances on that side. And then my bracket is busted. I just want Gunther and Ilya in the next round. I think Gunther would beat him, and that's fine, but I just want that net match in the next round. Watch Tiffany lose to Blair Davenport on Friday. I would not be shocked. I like Blair, don't get me wrong, but Blair should not be beating Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany should be winning that match. She should be realistically winning the whole thing. I know you would want Lyra. Lyra's a good choice, too. I don't think Lyra needs to win it. I think Tiffany...
that's why I said Tiffany's going to be there.
Yeah. I think you said Tiffany will beat her, and then you set up the damage control stuff perfectly. So let's see if you got your booking cap on correctly this time, and then hopefully it comes up. Hopefully it comes true. So I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks. But we'll have more to talk about next week. Double or Nothing fast approaching. King and Queen of the Ring is actually that same weekend. So when we get to that in 2 weeks, we'll have a lot to talk about there. But until then, new episodes every single Thursday, new WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, iTunes, Spotify, all the usual podcast platforms. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss a new episode every single week. Have a great one, Mr. Marceau. Enjoy your week, and I'll catch your ass down the road, brother.
Later, brother.
Join Graham, GSM Matthews, and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.